Now just a little bit about our organization, Quint, Wellington, Redwood. We're a completely 100% independent management consulting firm that is dedicated to the improvement of IT's value to the business. We've been in business for over 20 years now, established in 1992 over in Amsterdam. Today we've expanded globally to over 250 consultants, and we operate in just about 50 countries on almost every single continent worldwide. Our core business practices include sourcing, architecture, governance, lean IT, service management, and DevOps. And we're also proud to say that for the last 3 years now that we've been selected as a top global advisor on sourcing and governance by the IAOP, which has been a tremendous honor. And we continue to be a trendsetter in the areas of service management, lean IT, and DevOps. Now our motto is Dare to Challenge, and that really defines the way that we work. We challenge both ourselves and our clients to achieve measurable, sustainable organizational change. We apply results-based contracting to many of our assignments, which means that we take great pride in our work and willing to put our fees at risk. We co-create best fit solutions with you, with our world's best practices to ensure sustainable change and improvement is achieved. And last off, we are a global organization ourselves. We connect people, we accelerate your capabilities by understanding that there are geographic cultural differences within your organization, which we experience every single day. Now, with any further ado, I'm going to pass things over to our presenter today, Thijs Klaus.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining this webinar. The objectives for this webinar are to cover what makes up the IT ecosystem and what I think is needed to make sure that you can consider it yours. In line with this, we also want to look at the metrics that really matter and how to control the delivery through that IT ecosystem. And lastly, we want to look into what is needed to transform your IT organization into a high-performance organization. To kick it off, why do I consider any business an IT business? A couple of examples on the slide. We know it's the negative examples of where IT wasn't performing and it causes issues in the business. So we know the example of flights being cancelled and planes being put on the ground because of failing flight control over in the UK. But also there's examples of Starbucks on the East Coast in the US handing out coffees for free because cash registers weren't working properly. To me, what triggered me and seeing the confirmation that any business is an IT business is a perfect example from the car manufacturing industry, where you have one car manufacturer that runs a batch overnight, and all of a sudden the next morning all cars are equipped with functioning autopilot software. At the same time, we have another car manufacturer that has a software issue in its cars, and it's considering a recall of almost 1 million cars to the shops to take away the issue. So just imagine the difference in impact it has, not only on the driver of the car but also on the shops that need to deal with this workload. So to me, it's proof that if not already, every business will become a digital business. And we as Quint believe that to make this happen, digital experience has to be excellent, and that excellence is not so much driven by technology but actually about the capability of the organization to capture and harvest that technology for innovation. So why is this? Because at the end of the day, technology is moving at such a rapid speed that success is not so much defined by grasping on or embracing one single technology. Success is defined by the ability of the organization to harvest that innovation of technology for the benefit of the business of that organization. So what does it take to make this happen? In our belief as Quint, it means that you need to build a high-performance organization that's first of all responsive to customer needs, that it can embrace agility, but at the same time that it's secured and rugged in its operational processes, that it's capable of harvesting innovation, that it can drive change, and that it's continuously working to improve flow in the organization. But how to make that work? To us as Quint, it means that you need to circle back to the core, and that is delivery processes. What it means is you need to truly understand what makes up those processes, whether you run them yourselves or you have your partners and suppliers running them. But an understanding of operational processes, delivery processes, either in infrastructure or development, is needed if you want to build this high-performance organization. At the same time, you got to make sure that you simplify those processes. I think one of the challenges that we have in IT is that we make things overly complex. So we've got to reduce the complexity. The reason why we need to do it is because only the true compact processes provide us with the agility that we need to be able to build an adaptive IT organization that can move along with the changing business need. To make sure that we connect to the business need, we need to leverage, in our opinion, what is purely identified in Lean IT as the voice of the customer and value streams. Value streams provide a perfect means to connect the IT operations to what is defined as a success in the business. Once you have the processes and you have those value streams, the next step would be to focus on performance. What is needed to perform or to improve the value, the outcome for the customer? At the end of the day, to make this happen, as said, it's not so much about technology, but it's about staff that is capable of driving this improvement and driving this change. You got to make sure that you engage your staff and also that you anchor those capabilities in your organizations to make sure that you reach a sustainable result. So in this webinar, what I wanted to do is I wanted to touch upon a couple of the hot topics that we see out in the marketplace that are relevant to us in the IT business. Not discuss them in detail, but I want to pull out the common denominators of each and link them to what I just mentioned in terms of what is needed for high-performance teams. So we got Lean IT, Agile, DevOps, and SIAM. We also have digital transformation, the IT ecosystem itself, and IT service management that I want to cover. So starting with the IT ecosystem, and I'm going to use an example of one of our clients, a global car manufacturer. The issue that was on the table in speaking to their CIO was the fact that they had a wide range of partners and suppliers working for them. But any time they ran into a P1 incident or severe incident, CIO was unable to pinpoint who was responsible and who had to drive towards resolution of that incident. Yet at the same time, he had over 100 vendor managers and contract managers working for him. So in talking about this, he came to the conclusion that what went wrong is that in outsourcing part of the services, basically they stepped away from operational processes and handed them over to the vendor. And they tried to remain in control via control processes. But at the end of the day, if you want to consider the IT ecosystem yours, you got to circle back to what drives value in that system. So you got to circle back to operational processes and value creation. That is the only way that you can reestablish disconnected delivery chains, unclear responsibilities, and how you can shorten lead time on changes. So the approach is to build one single IT service management environment where you focus on delivery processes instead of control processes. You want to look at the metrics that matter if you want to manage performance, and then you want to manage your suppliers, whether it's internal or external, to meet agreed performance. To make this happen, in our view as Quint, we think that you need to focus on clear, yet at the same time very compact process definitions. You got to make sure that you have a clear understanding of the metrics that define process performance and quality. If you work with internal as well as external partners, we think you also have to look at feasible scenarios on how you want to onboard partners and how you want to integrate their service delivery. Finally, you need to have a very strong position, clear position on how you share data across the vendor landscape and how you protect data. Moving in on to the next one, service integration and management. Basically, the way we look at this as Quint is that it provides the technology layer to support that IT ecosystem setup that I mentioned in the previous slide. Again, the issue is to reconnect broken delivery chains, get clear allocation of responsibilities, and foremost in service integration and management, what you want to achieve is the ability to aggregate service delivery to match up to business demand. Because at the end of the day, what SIAM aims to achieve is a seamless integration of independent services of various internal and external service providers to meet the changing demand of the business. So the approach is to connect processes across the different suppliers. So again, to me, it's proof that we need to focus again on those operational processes, actual delivery processes. You want to capture those in supporting tooling. You want to make sure that you facilitate the exchange of relevant data across the vendor landscape. And you want to manage the suppliers to meet the agreed performance, and also to support the change in demand. To make this work, you need clear and preferably mutual KPIs to align all vendors internally and externally to performance definitions that support the business. In our view, to make SIAM work, and this is not what you see in most of the SIAM publications out there in the marketplace at this moment, but we consider it pivotal that you also include system management tooling and monitoring, because they provide important inputs to make the SIAM function really work. And you got to look at the level of integration and detail that you need in data exchange. So what kind of system do you want to build for yourself and your partners? Is it very rigid and robust, but also meaning that it's more like a harness where everybody needs to fit in and everything is exchanged according to predefined methods? Or do you want to work with a more loosely coupled environment where only the necessary data is exchanged? To get to this level of detail and to an opinion about this question, again, you need to focus on those operational processes. So digital transformation. In essence, there's many definitions out there, but the way we see it, it's the use of technology to radically improve performance and to generate new business models. It's about innovation, yet at the same time, we have the challenge that the capability to innovate is no longer in the company. It's either outsourced or we had a system where innovation is not supported. There was no room anymore in the organization to spend time on innovation. At the same time, there's also a lot of possibilities. So where to start? So to us as Quint, this is proof that if you want to move towards that high performance organization, you got to focus on the capability, you got to focus on your staff. It's not so much about technology, it's about building that capability to harvest innovation. So how to approach? First step is to divvy up your innovation processes. On the one hand, you want it robust and you want it portfolio based as you may run it today. In parallel, you want to build up a track that has more room for creativity and inspiring environments. So that's step one. And then the second one is start small. Don't try to do everything at once, but start in a more lab-like environment to kick it off and build result and leverage that result and build it out to a more formal setting in the organization. To truly reap the value of all this, you got to involve the end client, the customer. You got to involve the business. It's co-creation. At the same time, you also want to involve people from outside the organization. If you want to leverage this potential, it's all about new perspective. So critical to the success of digital transformation is you want to foster curiosity and versatility. You want to use methods like design thinking. Be very positive and inspirational in how you address it. It's not a risk-avoiding environment that you want to build. You want to build a sandbox that basically unleashes the potential and creativity of your workforce. So lean IT. In our view, a lot boils down to what is captured in lean, and lean adjusted to what is needed in the IT environment. So lean IT. Addresses issues about complaining customers, overloads of incidents and backlogs in the organization, poor quality of service, high cost, lots of rework in the organization, waste and defects, and a low motivation of the workforce. How it addresses all this is very much about engaging staff. At the same time, it's also about being very factual in the analysis of current performance and how to improve. So, fact-based and attitude, people, process, performance, and putting performance on the wall, making it visible for anybody in the team, and then the teams bottom up, being creative, okay, and what is needed to cross hurdles, remove backlogs, remove waste from the process, and to start building that performance and customer value. And in all this, making sure that the customer, the voice of the customer, is top of mind. Critical to making this work is that you got to be holistic. You got to understand the principles of lean IT, and as I said before, you got to combine people, process, and performance. Agile. What I think in moving towards this high-performance organization, what is an Agile on top of lean, what truly has the value is the incorporation of the business in your development processes and breaking up your development from huge portfolios with highly interdependent projects into smaller independent projects that can move along and that create rapid results. So business and rapid results, that's what it's all about. The issue it tries to solve is the long time to market and a low experience of customer value. Moving along to DevOps. DevOps to me, DevOps in essence, it's bringing together the infrastructure end and the development end. So what it does is it reestablishes a weak connection with the customer. It enables higher speed up of time to market and higher quality of services. A lot of DevOps is about leveraging technology. What I find relevant for today's webinar is that in DevOps, you find components that you can already use in how you operate today. For instance, the essence of DevOps is that if an incident occurs, it automatically triggers the problem solving to make sure that you get to the root cause of that incident and that you execute change to make sure that that incident will never happen again. This can be done today also, and it doesn't have to be complex, and although DevOps relies a lot on technology, you can even do it without the technology. Why not set a target in your IT teams to say, okay, name me a problem that you as a team will solve this week, removing a significant chunk of the incidents that you have open today. Once it's solved, move on to the next, and continue to move on, ultimately reducing that workload and backlog on incidents. Finally, IT service management, to me that provides the foundational layer to get to that high performance organization. It defines the way of working, whether it's in the infrastructure end or in the development end, you still find those operational processes and how you handle the work crucial to build performance on. It's a common understanding of how you want to work. And in our view, again, you got to combine people, process, and technology. A process has no value if it's not adopted by the people that have to execute it. So before we get to the point, my recommendation or our recommendations on how you can build that high-performance organization, just a couple of characteristics I wanted to share with you of an IT organization that I think are relevant if you want to move forward. First of all, we got to accept that we're a young industry and technology is moving fast. So we're going to continuously trail behind on that technology. That to me is the essence on why we need to build the capability instead of trying to cling on to that hot topic technology that runs the agenda today. The second thing that is of importance is that if you want to look at value streams, we got to understand that IT in itself is part of end-to-end value streams that are in the business. So if we want to move towards more customer focus, we need to involve the business. We need to close that gap and move towards the business. And this is where Lean provides a lot of the value and the value stream mapping and the voice of the customer. But if you want to make performance and value of IT visible, IT cannot do it itself. It needs the business to make it work. It's going to solve the third issue also, and that's of IT people speaking a different language and also having a different perspective on what is value. Because at the end of the day, only the business can define what is valuable in the support that the IT provides. The fourth one, and this is also where some of the stuff that I mentioned in the previous slides will provide the value for you, is that in essence the majority of what we do in IT is invisible. It's intangible. So we have an absolute must and need to make our performance and our processes visible so that we can put them on the wall, so that we have common goals and that we can align and work towards improvement. All right. So now what steps can you take to transition your teams into high performance teams? So first of all, the challenges, we got to acknowledge the fact that we're not necessarily aligned to the identity of the business, that we're not necessarily, that our people are not necessarily inspired to do what is needed in the business. And also very important, acknowledge the fact that Lean Agile DevOps have proven that speed and quality are not mutually exclusive. In fact, reducing lead times brings higher quality. So higher quality and lower cost come at the same time. And this is a paradigm shift. And if we are able to embrace that paradigm shift, we can make changes towards the high performance teams. So start defining and unifying beliefs across the organization. At the same time, allow some flexibilities for each team to have its own pace and variety in the way of working, but within that one ecosystem that has a common set of rules in the way of working. Empower your teams to find ways to fix issues and to improve performance. Focus on continuous feedback. Encourage collaboration. Engage your people to work on constant improvement. Step 2, focus on delivery processes and value streams. This is a very high abstract level of how we look at value streams to start value streams and providing value to the business. It starts with making sure that what you deliver today is fully operational to the business. Then any change that they need, they want it as quickly as possible. Thirdly, they want you to be a partner to talk about innovation. The issue is, if today's IT is not working, you won't be considered a spokesman to talk about innovation. Step 2, focus on time. Time is still a primary production factor. It's also a good definition for that capability that you need to have in the organization. Lastly, why focus on it? Because you can change how time is spent today. There's no dependency. We as Quint developed a method that we call burning and earning capacity. At the end of the day, the challenge for an IT organization is to move time that is spent on burning capacity towards earning capacity, because then you are providing value to the business. Step 3, once you have those processes in place, once you have those value streams, you can focus on performance. So what you see in this slide here is what we call a KPI cascade or KPI tree, and what it does is connects the strategic objectives of the organization through the management tiers all the way down to the shop floor level and each individual engineer to make it visible how a personal contribution adds up to strategic objectives. Step 4, once you have that KPI tree, put the numbers on the wall, make the results explicit, make the targets explicit, do short-term iterations to start working on improvement. Finally, step 5, set aside enough time to train your people and to build capability in the organization that people can learn and also learn to improve and sustain improvement in the organization. So, what does it mean for you today? Where to get started tomorrow? As said, Look into delivery processes, but keep them compact. Focus on value streams, closing the gap to the business, drilling down to the core of the business process. Link the company strategy and company goals to improvement targets within your teams. Take that as a starting point for process improvement. Take the time to invest in the analysis and quantification of performance. There's a lot of data stored in your IT service management tooling that you can use for the definition of performance and performance improvement. Set time aside for training. Make sure that everything that you do is visual, and be persistent. What we as Quint recommend that you don't do, and what we unfortunately see happening a lot in the projects out there, don't go cherry picking, don't bypass the tough issues, dare to challenge. Face the challenge, solve the tough issue if you want to create the breakthrough. Don't debate the method. It's not about the difference between Lean Six Sigma or Lean. It's not about Scrum versus DevOps. Also, don't debate the instruments or the metrics. Focus on the 95% that is accurate. Don't focus on the 5% that is not. Don't boil the ocean. Start small. And finally, don't be a bystander. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Yes, everyone. Thanks, Tice, for the great content today. Just so everyone knows, the Q&A box is still open. We already have a couple in there. If a question inspires a question out of you, just go ahead and put it in there, and we will get to it. So we'll just go ahead and get started with the first one, which is, can you explain a little bit more about how speed and quality are not mutually exclusive?
Yeah. It's a good question. So in our view, and in all the projects that we did, KPIs that we defined stem from value drivers, for instance, lost production hours, but for incident management, the two that we consider relevant or most relevant are mean time to repair and the backlog. So unfortunately, the situation in a lot of IT organizations that we use metrics that are more on the tactical level, like the service management, service level management level, that we translate those in how we operationally manage our teams. So resolution times, service breaches of 40 hours become a goal, which they are not. The essence of incident management is you got to restore the service as quickly as possible. So what wrong usage of metrics does is we start building huge backlogs in the organization, and those require coordination. We as Quint think that if you focus on the mean time to repair, the biggest benefit is achieved when you solve the incident that's open the longest. So start with what is in the backlog the longest and reduce the backlog to the smallest amount possible. What you'll see happening is that at the same time you're improving the value and the quality of the service that you provide to your customer, a quicker resolution time. At the same time, the amount of time that is needed to restore that service is going to reduce dramatically. So this proves the fact that you can be cheaper in the amount of time that you spend on incident management and at the same time achieve a higher performance.
Great, thank you, Tice. Let's move on to the next question here, which is, you mentioned lost production hours in your KPI tree. Can you just maybe further define what those are?
Yeah. So lost production hours, to the way we look at IT support, and also as proof on why those operational processes are of extreme relevance. To us, a disruption of service is the equivalent of IT functionality not being available to the business, and so unproductivity and a loss of production hours in the business. The amount, the extent, the percentage into this, and the extent into this, how this happens, or the impact is defined by the IT and how much of a labor hour is spent using that IT. But the essence of the loss of productivity provides an excellent means to define the burn rate or the money that is lost because of non-functioning IT. And this drives, to us, it's a very practical and tangible way to make the business cost of failing IT visible and providing the information, the business case, to improve the performance of IT. I hope that answers the question.
Great, thanks again, Thijs. The next question here is, can you provide an example of how to initiate the improvements you mentioned and what to consider that are things that are critical to consider for success?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Again, good question. So to us, CSI and ITIL, we think it needs to be addressed leveraging the potential of lean IT. Those two perfectly align. So the way we see it, it starts with baselining your current performance, output of the IT organization, whether it was those incidents that I just mentioned and targets that you set for the reduction, but it could also be reduction of time to market on changes, assess your current performance, and process output, and then using short iteration cycles, work on improvement of those metrics. And this is where you leverage the voice of the customer, but also this is what makes lean IT specific to IT. It's those metrics like the time to market for the changes, mean time to repair on incident management, but make the performance visual by putting it on the wall, and use the team, engage the team, use their creativity to set targets on how you improve it on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis. And in doing so, you can see dramatic improvements in relatively short time frames, and then you got to make sure that you anchor that improvement in the organization at the same time. So in our view, a lot of potential for continual service improvement is embedded in lean IT.
All right, and we'll actually make this the last question, Thijs. The question is, if we were to discuss our situation with you to get your understanding of how to move forward, what's your first step? Okay,
so what I do is there's two things that we can do. I think it's important to sit down and talk about scopes, talk about specific challenges and issues that you have in the organization. So and I'm not sure, but I think, Alex, you're going to circle back to that topic later on, that we can have that conversation. So that's one thing. Dig into what you have on the table today that needs to be solved, or the opportunity that you see. Second thing that you can do is, like I said, a lot of data is stored in your IT service management tooling. Do the analysis on that data to identify, baseline your current performance and set your performance targets.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Thijs. We have a couple of thank yous here in the questions box. You're welcome, everyone. And thanks again for joining. Just want to outline some few next steps that we have out there. On our website, we do have plenty of content on a lot of the subjects that were discussed during this webinar and more. Lean IT, digital transformation, DevOps, etc. Please, you can find that in the Knowledge Center at www.quintgroup.com. I'd also like to point out the knowledge communities that Quint is actually a founding member of. We are a founding member of DASA, the DevOps Agile Skills Organization, which is dedicated to creating a universal qualification program for DevOps and Agile. And now for about over a year now, we've been a part of the Lean IT Association. We helped found it, which is all about the exact same sort of thing, dedicated for Lean IT and getting that started within organizations. And now the last thing is we offer expert sessions, of course. Even ask for Thijs directly. I know he would be more than happy to discuss the topics with you that we covered here in today's webinar. It would be great to talk with you and start a conversation at any time. Feel free to reach out to us. And here's our methods to reach out. We have plenty of methods to contact us here. We're active on just about every single social media channel. Please follow us on there. That's where we release upcoming webinars and plenty of other content. You can always find that in real time online. And that should about do it for us today, everybody. I want to thank you again for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.